Order. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting, Tuesday, July 20th, 2021. And this is Acting Mayor or Councillor Eric Anderson in the chair. And welcome to the Squamish Nation Traditional Territory. First item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Could have a motion to move the agenda. Councillor Race and Councillor Herford seconded. Any opposed? Carried. Now I must read from our policy regarding conduct of meetings. The purpose of this policy is to set out means by which a special council meeting, including a committee of the whole meeting, may be held electronically and in person, or by members, or by which members of council may participate electronically and in person in regular council, special council, and committee of the whole meetings of the District of Squamish pursuant to the Community Charter and District of Squamish Procedure Bylaw number 2099-2009. Now we have a staff recommendation that pursuant to the Ministerial Order M192, the District of Squamish is allowing electronic and limited in-person attendance at the July 20, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting. The district is ensuring openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability at this meeting by the following means. This meeting is to be live streamed. A video of the meeting is to be available on the district's website for viewing in an on-demand basis. The meeting is open to the public for electronic attendance via WebEx and limited in-person attendance in council chambers to observe the council meeting. Could I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation? Councillor Herford. Thank you. And Councillor Race seconding. Any opposed? Carried. Now we'll move on to staff reports. We have one item of business for our Committee of the Whole agenda today. Two reports really, the strategic plan and the organizational plan updates. And I take it, Ms. Glenday, you'll be leading the presentation. Please proceed.
Thank you to the chair, and good morning, council and the community. Staff are very pleased today to be bringing you our semi-annual update on our organizational plan as well as the strategic plan. As an introduction, we have shifted our presentation format somewhat from the last time you saw an update. As council and the community can appreciate, there's a lot of detail provided on what we affectionately call our trackers for both the organizational plan and the strategic plan. And rather than the presentation focusing on going through each goal and tactics separately, which would take quite some time, what we've done at this point is each staff lead who's responsible for the priority area in the organizational plan or a priority area in the strategic plan has chosen to highlight something out of the strategic or organizational plan that they want to bring to council's attention, and as well any risks in terms of deadlines that may not be met or goals that may not be completed before this council term has ended. What that will do is provide much more time for discussion and a question and answer period for council in terms of what was presented, as well as all of the rest of the detail that's found in the trackers. So with that, I will pass it over. We'll start with our organizational plan, and our first pillar is people, and our Director of Human Resources is enjoying vacation right now, so I'll pass it over to Ms. Arthur.
Thank you, Ms. Glenday. Throughout the pandemic, the district maintained a people-first philosophy and prioritized our employees' well-being with alternative methods of working, such as working at home, and by implementing an incredible redeployment program for primarily recreation staff into other roles within the organization, and to supporting our social service agencies within the community. The philosophy worked, and we were able to retain almost all of our valued staff who are now back in their usual positions. Throughout the lockdown phase, the district also prioritized customer service and strived to ensure that the ability for the public to do business with the district was easy and seamless. When we moved into restart last summer, With guidance from public health and WorkSafe, we were able to reopen our doors with reduced hours and safe work procedures that protected both the public and staff. So as council is aware, on July 1st of this year, the province rescinded the state of emergency and we were able to fully reopen our operations for counter service. So right before the rollout of step 3, the province moved some of the considerations forward from step 4. And we sprung into action by quickly developing a high-level step 3 plan and a communicable disease plan tailored to our operation. And that was all done within a week of the restart news. So our staff are fabulous. And, you know, as always, we're proud of our staff's adaptability, while also recognizing that we still need to consider the comfort levels of staff and the public in providing our service as we move towards our new normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Well, we'll move into effective service, and I believe it's Mr. Ng who will be providing an update.
Hi, thank you. Linda, can everybody hear me okay?
You're loud and clear, Mr. Ng.
Thank you so much. An update on the technology transformation program. We had a major accomplishment yesterday with the launch of the final phase of our land management, also known as the development management project. This project brought all services and data related to business licenses and development services, such as permits and service agreements, etc., onto a single platform. And the single system, the centralized platform, is creating efficiencies for staff, as it is a one-stop shop for staff to receive on applications, to accept payment, all work processes. Has a mobile application for in-field data collection, as well as work order management for inspection services. It is integrated with our financial platform, UBW, to provide fiscal reporting and visibility in terms of all fees and charges. It is integrated with our GIS, as any business license and development activity on a parcel can be viewed within our online maps. And it is a foundation piece to bring these services online and to mobile platforms in the near future. The upcoming milestones that we are currently working on or in flight is we're improving our procurement services through the use of UBW, and we're preparing to launch the new recreation management system in October. UBW is configured to handle and facilitate all procurement activities, as from requisition or raising requisition to paying a supplier. And in so doing, we are replacing our paper purchase orders with computer-generated PDFs. We are replacing manual processes with task automation, and we're providing real-time visibility to all the budget managers for the status of their purchase orders. We have done half the organization are using the new tools, and over the next 2 months, we will have the remaining departments onboarded to the new system. And we have a new recreation management system that is in the process of being tested, and we're going to training soon. We are targeting October to launch the service. The key benefit is that we're bringing recreation services online, so the community is able to view and book and pay for the recreation services. Staff will have tools for easier configuration for changes to programs and other services. And like land management, it is fully integrated with our financial platform to provide reporting and visibility to recreation fees, charges, and revenues. And that's the update for the program.
Thank you. And we'll move on to stewardship, and David Rolston will be speaking to us.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is David Rolston. I'm the Manager of Municipal Infrastructure for the District of Squamish. So as recommended in the district's liquid waste management plan, the district has been updating integrated stormwater management plans over the past several years. So prior to initiating this work, the district had a variety of stormwater management plans that some dated back to the early 1980s. And so they're growing obsolete. So 3 years ago, we began with a phase 1 integrated stormwater management plan, which was district-wide and included an asset management plan for all stormwater assets, terms of reference for future catchment-specific integrated stormwater management plans, and a review of natural assets that provide stormwater management services. So following on that project, a year ago, we began our first catchment-specific integrated stormwater management plan for all areas south of the Mancomb River. So this is including a detailed plan for the Loggers East neighborhood to support planned development in that area. And the overall objective of all these plans is to ensure that the district is managing stormwater appropriately to control flooding and also ensure the health of our watercourses. The current integrated stormwater management plan is scheduled for completion this fall and will be brought forward to council at that time. And then once that project is complete, we'll initiate the next integrated stormwater management plan for Brackendale and the Garibaldi Estates, and that's expected to begin early next year.
Also in our stewardship pillar is our open data program, and our GIS supervisor, Dan Griffin, will speak to this one.
Good morning, Mayor and Council, Acting Mayor and Council. Thank you, Ms. Glende. So our open data policy, we adopted our open data principles in March. Council adopted those principles, and those principles were designed to promote open government while highlighting privacy and security of our data, with the intention of improving operational efficiencies and ensuring that our highest value data is identified and published to help support decision-making within the community. We want to ensure that our strategic data is reliable and accessible and consistently available to promote participation and collaboration. So with the adoption of the open data principles, that helps with the development of our policy and guidelines. So we developed a draft policy with support from the University of Concordia and their Center for Engineering and Society. We will be circulating that draft policy to senior staff for comment and review. And as well, we're developing out our guidelines and documents for staff on specifically what open data means and how to make data open and available. So that's coming, as well as defining our strategic direction for open data within our organization and how to engage with the community, identifying our stakeholders, and helping to build the open data program within the organization and beyond within the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Our last pillar in the organizational plan is building bridges, and we will hear from our manager of infrastructure, David Ralston, once again. Thank you.
Hello again. So district staff have been collaborating with Squamish Nation to rewater Jimmy Judd Slough over the past several years. When the dike was originally constructed in the 1970s, it was cut off from the Squamish River, or the slough was cut off from the Squamish River. It was a former channel. A pair of culverts were installed in the dike in the 1980s in order to provide fresh water into the slough. However, shortly after their installation, they were closed off and left buried within the dike as a result of flooding. So the abandoned culverts have been identified as a risk to the dike as they provide a seepage path and also the potential to form sinkholes. So the district's integrated flood hazard management plan recommended that they be removed. In discussions with the Squamish Nation during the integrated flood hazard management plan, they advised that the water quality has suffered within the slough and that salmon spawning has significantly decreased. And so they identified a desire to see the slough rewatered in order to enhance salmon spawning habitat and revitalize the slough. So the district has been working on the design and permitting for this project for over a year, and we have now awarded the tender and have supplies ordered. So the project will include a 70-meter long 900 by 2400 millimeter box culvert that will be controlled by an automated gate system in order to control the inflow of water to the slough and control flooding. So with the support of the Squamish Nation, the district was able to secure a $1.8 million grant in order to cover 100% of the project costs. And overall, this project is a win across the board for the environment, for flood protection, and also reconciliation efforts over past dike construction practices. Second project that I'll speak about is the Eagle Viewing Area and CHM Reserve Dike Master Plan. This plan was completed in 2020 and was endorsed by both district and Squamish Nation councils. So the need to complete a dike management master plan for this specific area was recommended in the Integrated Flood Hazard Management Plan due to the significant challenges in the area, including multiple landowners, including Squamish Nation reserve land, proximity to government road and other major infrastructure, as well as the dike being a known deficiency that was within half a meter of being overtopped in the flood of 2003. So the project itself was a unique project model in that it was a full partnership between the District of Squamish and Squamish Nation, right from selecting a consultant to developing design options and presenting to both councils. The plan includes a recommendation to realign the dike at the CHM Reserve in order to recover lost reserve lands due to erosion. And there are many challenges to implement this. The district is continuing to collaborate with Squamish Nation in order to advance the design. And notably, the district has just received a $280,000 grant in order to complete a geotechnical investigation, seismic assessment, and to prepare an updated design for the dike. So that work has just been kicked off. Overall, this project was a big success, having received unanimous endorsement from both district and Squamish Nation councils.
Thank you. We'll move now on to the strategic plan update. And I'd like to point out to council and the community that we have expanded the trackers to not only include a current snapshot or update, but also future milestones. So what goals and actions council can anticipate to occur over the next number of months. And the timing there, you'll see the line in the tracker, September 2022. And then beyond that. So some of the strategic goals will be completed after September 2022 when we were timing it according to this council's term. So you'll see what will be completed and what potentially is at risk. So with that additional detail, we hope that it will provide that future look for council and the community. So our first pillar in the strategic plan is the planet and our environment. Our manager of sustainability and climate, Ian Pickett's, also is enjoying some vacation. So today we have our Director of Engineering, Chris Wickham, who will speak to this pillar.
Hello, Mayor and Council. And Ian Pickett's has found a small hill near his campsite that he gets some cell reception from. So he will be available to answer questions, but we thought that it would be a little smoother if I present this pillar of the strategic plan. So for our current updates, we'll focus on the tactic relating to GHG tracking and implementation of the Community Climate Action Plan. Although the first strategy was simply to create an action plan, we felt that the community and council would appreciate some information on the implementation, which is ongoing. We have initiated a heat pump concierge program to support and enable people to switch their heating systems. Our plan is to expand this model to include more retrofit opportunities in the future. We are updating the zoning bylaw to include EV or electric vehicle readiness requirements, which will include single-family, multifamily, and commercial developments. We've secured funding to do more EV outreach. And we will be identifying community ambassadors, hosting a webinar, and creating video content specific to the Sea to Sky region. And as you can see the photo of our gas flare there. The landfill gas flare is in place and almost ready to be commissioned. I'm texting our engineer Jamie McCarthy madly to see if it's seen first fire. So I'm not sure yet, but it's scheduled for today or tomorrow. And so everybody should get out their extended marshmallow roasting sticks. We hope to be turning methane into CO2 by the end of the week on a regular basis. For future milestone updates, we'll focus on the Zero Waste Action Plan, engagement, and education. We have and continue to expand our communications and outreach materials. As public-facing businesses return to full capacity, we're taking the opportunity to remind businesses about solid waste bylaw requirements and our new deconstruction bylaw when appropriate. We've been focusing on construction for the last year, as they're a major creator of waste that's been ending up in the wrong place, and have been very active during COVID. And now that things are getting back to normal, we can look more at people, other types of businesses. We're finally able to ramp up in-person zero waste events. This is an image of our first recycling pop-up event that we've had across from the market last week. Our sustainability coordinator was able to collect some material and have a number of good conversations. In June 2022, we conducted a curbside collection analysis. We will conduct a curbside collection analysis of recycling materials and launch a contamination reduction campaign. This will be highly visible in the community. Finally, we're looking forward to a comprehensive review and possible update of our zero waste strategy. The current one is from September 2016. 2022 is excellent timing for this. The landfill expansion design work starting at this time. We can guide important decisions about how to integrate circular economies and waste reduction into the design of the landfill. To quickly go over some risks, as you are aware, we have missed our 2021 diversion target. COVID and a focus on single-use items delayed action on this. As discussed in the previous slide, we do believe we're making good progress currently. We also have not focused on the community carbon marketplace, electing to focus on the creation and initial implementation of the CCAP and the creation of the MEEP, or Municipal Energy Plan, and other priorities. We aim to revisit this later in 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Wickham. On to our next pillar. Jonas Belaniskis, our Director of Planning, will be speaking to housing affordability and diversity.
Thank you, Ms. Glende. So in terms of the key goals under this priority area, the key goal is to build an additional 125 affordable rental units by 2022. And these would be units that are at or below 80% of the market rate. So the key accomplishments under this goal so far include the construction of 76 affordable rental units that is currently underway with the Buckley project. The occupancy for that project is expected in the summer of 2022. Articles for establishing a housing society as well as a bylaw associated with it are being worked on by staff. And the partner agreement to manage and operate affordable rental housing units has been prepared with the Sea to Sky Community Services Society. In terms of anticipated milestones for under this goal, these would be exploring the potential to initiate another affordable housing project, something that staff are currently working on. Initiation of that may be possible later this year or in 22. After 2022, we anticipate having a housing society up and running who would be sort of taking on the affordable housing function that staff are currently doing. In terms of risks in this priority area, the goal of extending our affordable housing program to include affordable ownership is not something that can be achieved in 2022. A number of milestones need to be achieved prior to us getting to that point. So for one, we do need to establish a housing society with capability to manage the acquisition and sale of housing units. And we would also need to secure a commitment for units that would be managed under this program. So start securing some of this through our CAC policy.
Thank you, Jonas. Third pillar is the economy and local jobs, and our Economic Development Officer, Kate Mulligan, will be presenting to council.
Thank you, Ms. Glende, and hello, Council. As part of key accomplishments focused on the goal of generating a net increase in employment lands, in 2020, staff worked with a land economist to develop a new district-owned tool, the employment space model, which is used to analyze employment space demand scenarios in relation to supply. And building on this work and to round out any gaps in information not provided by the tool, staff undertook a qualitative study to provide insights into the characteristics and needs of industry user groups for various forms of employment space throughout the district. Additionally, staff have completed an analysis of financial viability of various forms of employment space and the industry users which occupy them. Moving forward, staff will complete updates to the employment space model in 2021 and make recommendations via a set of employment space guiding principles to be presented to Council in early 2022. In terms of future milestones, economic development is also engaged in the implementation of the district's Emerging Sector Roadmap and Action Plan, which focused on the development of two emerging areas of our economy, the green economy and outdoor recreation. The department, with the help of key stakeholders and other district departments, are in the process of developing a new website featuring enhanced content to better service existing businesses and attract new firms and employment to Squamish. The team is also engaged in an agri-foods impact study to gain an understanding of the social, environmental, and economic impacts of the agri-food sector in Squamish, including food and beverage processing. A lead generation plan, new familiarization program, ambassador toolkit, and cluster mapping will equip economic development with tools, resources, and information needed to attract new investment to Squamish and support the growth of existing businesses. In terms of risks, while a major focus of the work being completed is in an effort to increase local employment, the reality is that COVID-19 resulted in job loss throughout Canada and the rest of the world. There is no doubt that locally, COVID has also resulted in job losses in 2020, albeit a rebound is anticipated for 2021. In addition to the job loss experience, the local population continues to grow, with 2.4% growth estimated in 2020 alone. Economic development is anticipating that population is also understated as a result of COVID-19, which has resulted in outmigration from larger urban centers. This poses risk in meeting the Council's goal of increased employment per capita year over year by 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mulligan. And for the final priority area in the strategic plan, neighborhood connectivity and public spaces, we'll go back to Jonas Valaniskas and planning.
Thank you. So a key goal in this area is to increase publicly accessible parks and gathering spaces in 5 residential neighborhoods, as well as the downtown area by 2022. 2021 and 22 are going to be big years for park construction. In terms of key accomplishments, we have 4 major parks that are nearing the construction stage this year with multi-jurisdictional approvals in place. For the most part, construction is set to begin on all of them by the end of the summer. And worth a note is that the new neighborhood park in the University Heights area is now complete. And I will pass this next slide over to Dan Griffin.
Thanks, Jonas. So in 2020, just prior to COVID, we had developed public engagement surveys to gather information from the public around favorite public spaces in Squamish. That was put on hold. That work was put on hold. We are now resurrecting that in partnership with the local community group, Our Squamish. We'll be launching a new online favorite public spaces survey and story around public spaces to engage with the community. Our Squamish is working with our communications team to promote that work, promote that site. And as well, we'll be developing or further developing our place-based survey, more detailed survey to collect site location specific information. And we're looking to launch that early in 2022. This work will help provide information back to the district in support of our community placemaking projects and infrastructure placement, priority areas and whatnot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. And in terms of risks under this priority area, the goal of completing neighborhood plans for 2 existing neighborhoods is at risk. The Loggers East neighborhood plan has been completed, and staff are now working on the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood plan. However, this second plan will not be completed in 2022. The initiation was delayed to allow for the completion of the Loggers East plan, as well as zoning bylaw phases 1 and 2. We are also adapting our approach to community engagement in the second plan, building on the learnings from the Loggers East plan, which means we're going to spend more of our staff resources engaging in the process. Thank you.
Thank you to all the staff that presented. That's a photo from one of our staff to finalize the presentation, and that's the highlight reel for our strategic and organizational plan, and I'll pass it over to Councillor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Glay and Ms. Glenday and your team. Council, any questions or concise comments? And why don't we start with the organizational plan presentation by Ms. Glenday, Ms. Arthurs, Carrie Ng, and David Rolston, in case anybody has any questions or comments on the organizational plan. Councillor Stoner.
Thank you, through the chair. My one question is, the organizational plan speaks to the work from home policy and a potential hybrid model going forward. And I'm just curious if this will have budget implications, and if we've started to kind of wrap our head around that, mostly around updating technology for staff, if they are going to be working from home part-time and in the office part-time, or if that's been reconciled already through 2020.
Speaking of technology, with work from home, as we know, we already have a office deficit prior to the pandemic, where we were sharing spaces on top of one another. This actually highlighted opportunity for us as opposed to the other way around. And as far as budget goes, primarily we've already spent the money on additional hardware ability. Where it's going to have an effect is in our licenses for our devices, and IT with support, because all of a sudden we have more to support, and it's in new and improved methods of support and ways of supporting remote, as well as our electronic meetings, and which is not remote work necessarily, but we will be having staff, rather than returning to the council chamber necessarily, they will be presenting remotely for public hearings and regular council meetings, and so that is all going to have an impact. I think that we're not going to know a total budget impact until we've worked through it or been through it, but where we do see where we've identified the deficit right now is with IT support and our license, and those are going to be included in the 2022 first level. Thank you.
Further questions, comments, council? Mayor Elliott.
Thank you. And I had a bit of bandwidth issue when Mr. Rolston was presenting, but I understood that natural asset management was going to be part of our updated asset management plan, and I'm just wondering if you can give an indication of where that's at.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. Yes, we have some good news. We did receive a grant through FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So it's a $50,000 grant that we're going to be using to advance our natural assets within our asset management plan, and that work is underway.
So will that be done this year, Mr. Olson, or into 2022?
Through the chair, yes, that work will be completed this year. The work is underway. We expect to present that plan to council this fall.
Thank you. And just a question, Ms. Arthurs, I don't know if you can answer this because Ms. Blake is away, but the HR area calls out the #1 need from staff being mental health resources. And then later in that update, it talks about putting our benefits out to tender. And so is there a connection between those two things? Are we looking at providing more mental health supports through our benefit system, or what are we missing there coming out of the pandemic?
Thank you for that question. So it is every specified number of years we do take our benefits to market so that we always know that we're getting the best value for the services that we're providing our employees for benefits, and that you know, the providers are not increasing the rates out of market and that type of thing. It's responsible procurement. We've already increased what they are providing. Great West Life and Homewood, which provides our mental health support, and our Employee and Family Assistance Program, in fact, they increased what we were provided during the pandemic. So what we will be looking at through market is maintaining the service levels, because I think what we've determined is that rolling back the support that people are receiving wouldn't be helpful. So we would be looking for our new program to include this level for the same amount of money, not an increase.
So psychological services or counseling services are now part of the benefits plan?
They always were previously, but they had a cap. And what we've done is increase the roof on that cap.
Great. Okay, thank you.
I believe I saw Councillor Pettingill up next.
Yeah, Chair, I just had a more general comment. I'm not sure if you want general comments now or you'd rather wait.
We'll accept concise comments. Councillor Pettingill.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, again, and I've said some of these things before, but we're facing a lot of challenges, a climate crisis, which really doesn't care how much or how hard it is for us to address it. Just our survival depends on that. There's broader BC and Lower Mainland trends with affordability. As a community, we have a lot of contradictory expectations. And I personally find in meetings, because we've got so many things to deal with, we focus on a lot of the challenges and issues. And as I read through these plans, this update, you know, it really struck me, not just what we have on the near horizon, but what we've accomplished. And I think, you know, I just wanted to take the time to pause and thank staff for the amazing work. You know, it's not just talking anymore about what we're going to accomplish and the big things we're going to do. We see a lot of them have been accomplished now. And I think it's very inspiring and something I'm quite proud of. I think our community should be proud of. I think we'll still be pressing because there are lots of urgent issues and we see what our staff is capable of. But I just really wanted to acknowledge before we go on the break how pleased I am with the progress we have been making with our strategic plan, just the wide variety of things we're balancing and accomplishing. Still lots of work to do, but I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you to our staff and our community, but especially our staff for everything you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pettingill. Before we move on to the strategic plan, were there any further questions or comments on the organizational plan? Seeing none, we'll move to the strategic plan and the presentations by Mr. Wickham, Mr. Valiniscus, Ms. Mulligan, and if there may be any questions or comments on strategic plan elements. Councillor Race, followed by starting Councillor.
Thank you. It's, I guess, more of a comment. everybody can hear me. I'm using a new microphone today. So it's more of a comment, really. And when I was reading this, and particularly with relation to the climate steps we're taking, that most of them seem to be mitigation as opposed to adaptation. And I'm not being critical of the mitigation steps we're taking. I voted for all of them, I think. And I think they will make us a better community and a more efficient community. But it's impossible to ignore the media reports of fires in the interior, flooding in Europe, other reports from time to time about increasing frequency and intensity of storm actions and climate events. And so I think, from my perspective, I think if we want to do anything or make any changes, it would be to perhaps shift some of the attention and some of our resources to more adaptation measures. And I don't have any specifically in mind, but I keep thinking that, 10,000 years ago, there was a kilometer of ice over top of us. Most of it, if not all of it, was gone by the time the Industrial Revolution started. So there certainly was a warming trend. And with all of the steps we're taking now for emissions and so forth, we may slow down that trend, but it's unlikely that we are going to stop it and get it going in another direction. And so I think we have to face a future that is going to be warmer and perhaps a little bit more active and possibly violent than what we enjoy today. And I think, if anything, then we should be starting to think and perhaps even speed up some of our efforts at adaptation, thinking stormwater management, interface issues, and more robust prevention of fire. So that would be my only comment on this so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Mayor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question for Mr. Veliniscus around the 125 affordable rental units, below market rental units. That was our goal. And I know that we've been working with BC Housing and See the Sky on the Buckley Avenue project and BC Housing potentially on another project. But are there any below market units that we've approved through development that may be completed before the end of our term?
Thank you. That's a great question. So there are a number of affordable units that are coming through development, but none of those units will be coming online by 2022. They take a long time. They're usually, the units that are coming through with developments are usually in part of a larger development, because smaller developments will pay the cash in lieu fees. And so these larger developments take a number of years to come to fruition. I think likely the closest project will be Waterfront Landing, who are in the building permitting process at this point to construct the 55 affordable units they require.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Veliniscus, we're still fast tracking as many of those affordable projects as possible? Are we not?
That's correct. Yeah. So any affordable housing projects would be in our priority application process all the way through the building permitting. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. My next question is, I think, for Mr. Griffin about the engagement around our public spaces usage. And I just wanted to check, because we had a presentation, a delegation to council last Tuesday about accessibility issues with some of our public realm. And I'm wondering, through the survey that we're doing in partnership with our Squamish, or some of the work that we're doing later on in this process, is how are we reaching out to people and also asking questions around accessibility, and whether that's for seniors, those with physical restrictions, parents that have toddlers and strollers. Like, how are we getting at that really more diverse experience of our public realm through our Squamish partnership or the work planned later in the year?
So the our Squamish partnership right now is focused primarily on public space use, it's a general survey gathering information around how people are interacting with public spaces and where they're interacting with public spaces. There is a more detailed survey plan, and I actually just met with Sarah McDonough this morning to talk about the level of detail within that survey. And she did mention accessibility as a consideration. So I think we can plan that into that that more detailed survey. At this point, it's a user-based survey. The plan is to put information boards around town. People can access the app through QR code or something similar. We don't have the staffing to go out and directly interact with people and gather information at this point. So it will be up to us, I think, to identify those specific stakeholder groups and go out and engage with them and and provide them with information to access that detailed survey, and give some meaningful thought to how we collect that data and what questions we ask through that survey. But the intention is to provide data back to staff to help with those community placemaking projects and infrastructure placement, and identify gaps where they currently exist. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm glad that that's being considered, because we don't want to just create spaces for able-bodied people or people that are just single and fit and healthy. We want to make sure that we're taking that sort of 8 to 80 approach and consider newcomers, underhoused, people with disabilities. All that sort of engagement is really important for us to get that right. Thanks very much. Good to know that that's kicking off later this year. And then finally, I'm not sure who to address this question to, but we talked about, Brennan Park, and we've got the lands and fields strategy, and just trying to get a better sense of how we're doing on planning for the expansion of Brennan Park and raising money for that. And yeah, there was a few blank squares in the Recreation Services strategic planning area.
I see that Dan is on the line, Dan Paisley, and I'm wondering, Mr. Paisley, if you're able to answer that question for us.
Certainly, through the chair to Mayor Elliott. Can everybody hear me?
You're fine, Mr. Paisley.
Thank you. I'll break that down into two pieces. The Brennan Park Open Spaces Plan, as Council knows, is going back to stakeholders just for final re-engagement in the fall, as far as the Lands and Parks Master Plan. And that will be brought to Council later this year. And within that, as far as the bricks and mortar structure, I don't have a timeline on the actual Brennan Park Recreation Facility Master Plan update, so I'll make a note and I can get you back that information specifically in regards to that piece of the question, unless there's somebody else on the meeting that can respond to that part of it.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Paisley. We'll bring that detail back to Council.
Thanks. And just one final question for economic development. The outlook for sort of after December 2021, those milestones are all sort of missing around the sector roadmap and action plan. And so I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about the March 2022, June, and September 2022.
Absolutely. Through you, Chair, thank you for the question. As we proceed into 2022, we will now be equipped with tools and resources that we didn't have, that we had been building this year, including our website, the lead generation plan, ambassador toolkit, and so on. We plan to use those tools and resources to actually start the implementing the goal of actually attracting investment. So The real goal here is that economic development will, with the help of stakeholders, will be hitting the ground running in terms of increasing investment, ultimately local firms and employment in the district of Squamish. So it'll be a year of action and using what's been developed in 2021.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Very good. Councillor Stoner is up next. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a clarifying question, I think, for Mr. Wickham on the zero waste strategy. Just curious on an update of where we're at with implementation and enforcement of the single-use plastics bylaw. I know that was derailed a little bit because of COVID. I didn't see it highlighted in kind of the core activities going forward, so I'm just curious where we're sitting with that.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, we, as you pointed out, actually at the beginning of COVID, the single-use plastics became important, and so we didn't enforce during that time. However, we are back to the bylaw is in force and is being enforced. It is something that our sustainability coordinator for outreach does address with businesses, particularly when he's working with those businesses on organics and recycling and everything. He makes sure he hits them on both bylaws at the same time. I don't have a more fulsome update than that at this time, though.
No, that's helpful to know that it is that we are actually enforcing it this time. I wasn't sure if we were still kind of on hiatus there. So that's helpful. Thank you. And then just a general comment, echoing my colleague's previous comments about how impressive it is, how much work continues to be done through both the strategic and the organizational plan, given the year and a half that we've had. My only request going forward in terms of how, especially the strategic plan continues to be presented, we were quite explicit about trying to write the objectives in a way that they were measurable and they had specific targets to them. And I saw some of that data come out in the presentation from staff in terms of which direction those numbers are going, but I think it would be really helpful to include it as a line item in the strategic plan update, recognizing that some of those numbers are challenged and there's good rationale for that. But I think just in order to track that progress against those measurable targets, I'd really appreciate having those included in a column of the strategic plan update going forward. But other than that, a huge thanks to staff for their ongoing work in all of these areas.
Thank you, Councillor Stoner. Are there any further questions or comments at this time, Council? Councillor French.
Thanks, Chair. I don't have any questions, but I will share some comments. And I too echo the praise that Council deserves, or that staff deserves rather, for the great work that has been put into achieving the goals that have been achieved so far in the strategic plan. And thank you to staff for being very diligent about tracking the progress and quite detailed with most of the items of where we're at, what needs to be done, and where we're coming up short. So reading through the tracker really got me thinking about our downtown and specifically the future of it. And I found myself asking, how many residents is too many? And this doesn't fit into our current work with the strategic plan, but I think this is what we need to be looking at next. And should we start to think about population caps or bed unit caps for the downtown area? So as we work forward, I would hope that this is something that we would be thinking about for the future of our downtown as we continue to make decisions on developments moving forward. Thank you.
I see Mayor Elliott's hand. Please go ahead, Mayor Elliott.
Through the chair to my colleague, I'm curious about what's prompted this discussion around challenging our downtown first and densification issue to make it a lively place in the center of the community. And so what issues are arising that would require us to limit that any further? There's the zoning we have. So that's been in place, and we've just gone through the whole zoning bylaw update. So what haven't we addressed that you feel is creating issues?
Through the chair, this is certainly a conversation that's happening in our community, and I don't necessarily think that there's any shortcomings in the work that has been done previously. I am simply hearing a lot of feedback that says there are concerns about where our downtown is at and where it is headed in the way of population and density.
Thank you, Councillor French. At this time, not seeing any further hands, I do have a few questions of my own, but I'd like to turn it back over to Ms. Glenday, who may wish to share some budget considerations relating to the strategic plan with Council, and which may prompt some further questions and comments. Ms. Glenday.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I just wanted to carve out a bit of time. I recognize we're coming up against noon, to ask of Council your opinions or deliberations on budget as it relates to the strategic plan. We have many competing priorities. You can see that there are goals there that are at risk. And what are the critical elements of the plan that you'd like to see us prioritize as we go into preparing the budget for your consideration in the fall?
Thank you, Ms. Glenday. Any questions or comments prompted by Ms. Glanday's comments? Then I'd like to proceed with some questions of my own at this time. Did I miss any hands? No, I'll proceed with a couple of questions of my own. I have two questions for Mr. Wickham and two questions for Mr. Vilaniskis following. Firstly, for Mr. Wickham. There is, in the discussion of the waste management, it strikes me that with our new demolition bylaw and the expectations that Council has, and we're all following it closely and looking at projects, this includes construction sites, it seems to me that this is evolving and we have a ways to go. In particular, we are lacking infrastructure for example, receiving and sorting wood waste and other construction waste. We lack facilities. Among these facilities that we do have are the Squamish Rebuild, but we also used to have the Squamish Reuse It Fair. So I've made a comment here. I do believe we're lacking infrastructure and we should give this some attention. But my question, we had our last Reuse It Fair at the Brennan Park Arena in 2020, I believe, and this was a useful event for people with furniture and larger items, clothing to be recycled. And I hear comments from a number of people around the community that that's an event that is missed and that opportunity to recycle those types of articles. There's been a reference to the in-person pop-up events, but is there some consideration to going back to hosting some type of a larger dedicated event like the fair at Brennan Park Arena?
Through the chair, absolutely. We can't wait to bring the Reuse It Fair back. It was only canceled due to COVID. Hopefully we won't be seeing another fourth wave. We'll obviously be watching it as Reuse It Fair comes up, watching public health orders, etc. We want to bring that back, and are also working on circular economy very actively on various other types of wood waste.
Thank you, Mr. Wickham. That leads to my second question for you. You've mentioned the circular economy study underway. Will there be a report coming to Council on that initiative?
Yes, I expect so.
Thank you. I have two further questions, then I'll turn over to Councillor Herford, who has some additional comments or questions. And these are for Jonas Vilaniskis. I wonder, Mr. Vilaniskis, if you could summarize the situation of delay in the formation of a housing society. There's reference to potentially delay to June 2022, and in your presentation today, you mentioned to quote after 2022. can you summarize the issues in the way of implementing this housing society, partly with the district perhaps, but other organizations, if you may be able to elaborate?
Thank you for the question. I will have to pass it on to Ms. Glende, as I believe she has been briefed by Mr. Buxton, who's currently away.
Sorry, can you please repeat the question?
There is discussion, Ms. Glende, of the formation of a housing society. That's a key initiative that we've discussed a number of times in the last couple of years, but there's reference to delaying or not being able to realize this until well into 2022. Would you be able to elaborate on what's in the way of implementing this sooner?
At this point, really, it's budget. So we will bring forward a budget proposal to council to consider. And beyond that, it would just be the logistics, should council fund it, to bring staff up to speed and complete formation of the bylaws.
Thank you. A second question for Mr. Vilaniskis. There's reference in the strategic plan report to priority development application policy being reviewed. Is this something that might be coming before council in the near future, or is it more or less an administrative initiative? Thank you.
Thank you. We do review policies on a regular basis. I think we haven't been planning on an imminent review of the priority policy. The next kind of policy project we'll be undertaking that's related to it is the community amenity contribution policy. And as a result of that review, that might spark another look at the priority applications.
Thank you, Mr. Vilaniskis. I'd like to turn it over to Councillor Herford at this time, and I see that Councillor Race has further questions or comments, and Mayor Elliott. Excuse me, I've been alerted that Mayor Elliott has been waiting, so please go ahead, Mayor Elliott.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to wait, but in terms of priorities, I think the one that Councillor Anderson just raised around the housing authority is critical, and moving the housing pieces, that strategy forward. To me, if there's a way to accelerate or better support the staff that are working on it, that would be something that I would want to see in the budget this year. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Herford?
Thank you. Now I get to try to rephrase my statement, which is pretty much exactly what the mayor just said. The piece that jumps out at me is the housing, the work on housing in general, I suppose, and the housing authority is a big piece of that. So I see, as much as these other pieces in here are important, this piece is not getting any better without our help. In fact, it's getting worse as we go as far as general affordability in the community. So that piece really jumps out at me. I'd like to see that highlighted going forward. Is that good paraphrasing of what the mayor just said? Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Race.
Thank you. I've just been sort of pondering Ms. Glende's comments about budget. I know Councillor Stoner likes to mull things over, but I prefer to ponder them actually. But I think that I'll go back to my first comment relating to resources for adaptation. And I know there are several projects going on along that line. And I know they tend to be large projects and very often require senior government funding. But we do prepare 5-year plans. And so I would hope that there is some consensus on council to put resources to that initiative. The second item that I think is a bit of a pinch point in the community is the recreation, and it's been touched on, I think, as the mayor's comments. And so I would hope that, and once again, I know with some of the larger building assets that are proposed, there's also rely on senior government funding. But I think, once again, if we can start lining those up, because I think there is certainly a growing need in our community for a variety of recreation assets. So I would look for those two to be highlighted in the budget. Thank you.
Further questions and comments, Council? I'll go ahead with a couple of final comments of my own then at this time. Starting with the economic development or the economy and jobs pillar, I wish to note that, and I'll cite 3 from our chart here. There's reference to emerging sector series, emerging sector strategy, supply chain gap analysis for the same priority emerging sectors, and a variety of initiatives, and further reference under the column December 2022 to further consideration for emerging sector development. My general comment is that we should not overlook our core and enabling sectors, and these include forestry, tourism, and transportation. And 2 of those in particular have some well-identified needs. The forestry land strategy is outlined in the OCP. There's a lot of significant land use planning issues relating to that. And we have visited in the discussion of the marine zoning and marine action plan that there are some employment lands issues that come up for commercial transportation that we shouldn't lose sight of. And I think that while we have some marvelous and very useful studies being done, there is some sort of bigger picture strategic thinking that we wouldn't want to overlook. And I'm sure that the economic development staff are not overlooking it here, but it occurred to me that they are not referenced or highlighted in the report that we have before us. So attention to core and enabling sectors, those key 4 foundational parts of our local economy. Second comment I wish to make is that Councillor Race, following Councillor Race, in reference to that we shouldn't overlook our needs for a variety of recreational assets and amenities that our community will be needing and looking for in future. That includes culture and cultural facilities. And I just note with regret that our arts, culture, and heritage strategy, and these are tactics or action items 6.3, which is planning for and collaborating on a plan for cultural facilities, and 6.4, developing specific targets. These are long into the future as scheduled in that strategy, and that's unfortunate. I think that when we look at the community amenity contribution policy, we may wish to maybe selectively revisit those elements of that strategy and bring them forward. I think that there's some very useful planning information regarding cultural facilities that we should be mindful of in terms of our needs. Finally, there is reference to improving and enhancing transit, of course, under the environment pillar. I'll just note briefly, and perhaps we can revisit this in fall when we have a presentation on transit programs, but we do not have a scheduling interface between our BC Transit service here locally and our only regional passenger carrier. That is for early morning commuters. We don't line up our bus schedule with that Vancouver run that's coordinated by private service. And finally, there's reference in the environment section again to blue carbon. And I'll just note that there is no existing or proper baseline study for this initiative. It is a notion, I suggest, at this time. There was a study done a few years ago by a community group, but I think that it's really not an adequate work and wasn't intended to be kind of a groundwork for a blue carbon initiative. I think that we're really starting from scratch and including and identifying sites. I'll leave my comments at that. Council, any further comments or questions for staff? Seeing none, we don't have a recommendation before us to formally adopt these reports, but on behalf of council, thanks to all of staff and Ms. Glenday, I thought this is a very successful presentation, well organized, and it was nice to see the different faces. We were missing a few, but we subbed in very adequately. Thank you very much. No, I think we're on. I'll just grab my agenda here. Ms. Glenday, please.
Just very quickly through the chair, I want to reiterate that I absolutely encourage staff to take holidays, and Mr. Pickett's insisted on being on the phone. I told him not to show up.
Then I'll entertain a motion to terminate. Councillor Herford, any seconder? Councillor Race, anybody opposed? Thank you very much. The motion is carried and we're done for this morning.